This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode here at the Kickpod podcast, the podcast dojo for inspirational martial arts talk. I am your host, TJ Williams, fourth degree black belt of the Chuck Norris system with 26 years of experience. Here to give you the insight of my martial arts journey, discussing and analyzing martial arts based subjects, and highlight individuals involved in martial arts past, present, and future. All right, just to start this episode off, for those who just joined me for the first time, this is a pre-recorded episode, so whatever I talk about in this episode is either going to pass or coming up. And for those, this is going to be the first episode of the new year, so of course hope everybody enjoyed their Christmas holiday, and I know people are still enjoying their presents. And in this case, if you live in the Western New York area, I know we got hit with the winter blaster with the blizzard. I mean, luckily where I'm from, I didn't get hit too much, but I know Buffalo had suffered. You know, people, of course, sadly we had some people that that died during the blizzard. So I hope, I pray for their families. And I hope things are going to get well when the weather kind of slows down. But nevertheless, we got so many people that are still stuck out there, and they definitely need our help to get them out there. But like I said, I'm pretty much good with Niagara Falls right now, and we're still dealing with snow falling down. But nevertheless, we're out. We're going to be ready for this new year coming up. I mean, roughly one more week of 2022, and we're into 2023. All right, so with that being said, I have a guest with me that's going to start the first episode of the new year, coming from Kansas City, Missouri, being actually done various martial arts styles. And of course, she's the co-owner of Kendrick's Protective Arts, which is a Filipino style of martial arts, and she agreed to come talk to me today about her journey, and let's should I say share her journey. So I like everybody to say hello to Jackie Bradbury, and I hope everything's going well in Kansas City, Missouri. So how you doing, Jackie?
Doing great. We're a little cold, got a little bit of snow, but nothing like you guys have up in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been better off moving to Las Vegas, so I had to worry about dealing with snow.
I lived there for a year. It was awesome. I have to say, I liked it.
Yeah, I get a lot of energy when it's hot. So yeah.
I like cold weather. I moved from Texas to get this, so I'm actually not complaining at all.
All right. So I understand that you do so many of these various martial arts. So what martial arts that you actually been through?
All right. So primarily, I teach and study Filipino martial arts. What we do here at our school, Kindred Protective Arts, is a style that we call Presses Arnis. There's actually several flavors of this. It is a blend of modern arnis as created by Professor Remy Presses, and Combaton as created by Great Grandmaster Ernesto Presses. Yes, they were brothers. There's actually a third brother, Great Grandmaster Roberto Presses. I have not had the opportunity to train in any of his systems or styles, so we don't really include that. So our blend is those two styles kind of put together into a cohesive whole.
Okay, so we're definitely going to discuss that later in the interview. But one thing is, you as my guest, we're going to highlight your journey as a martial artist. So, of course, the first question would be, how would you describe yourself before getting into martial arts? So, basically, who were you?
Sure. Unlike a lot of other people who teach and train in the martial arts or own martial arts schools, I did not do martial arts as a child. I did not do it as a teenager. In fact, I didn't even consider martial arts until my oldest daughter joined a Taekwondo school in a suburb of Memphis that we lived in at the time. And I had gone through sort of like a midlife crisis, and I was looking to get healthier. And one of the things I wanted to do was to get more physically active. And to be honest, picking up heavy weights and putting them down again is not my idea of a good time. And I had blown out my knees. I was a runner. I was an athlete as a teenager, blew out my knees. So running, biking, those things were not really something I could do. So my husband suggested, because he had started doing Taekwondo with her, just kind of keep her engaged as kind of like a family thing. He suggested that I join them at Taekwondo. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll try it, I guess. Fell in love, first day. And I went from doing nothing to doing martial arts at that time 3 times a week. And that was all the classes that they offered. And so that was in April of 2008. And then, so before then, I worked really hard. I worked 60-hour weeks. I didn't do anything fun outside of watch TV and play video games, that kind of stuff. I was not physically active. And so like a lot of women in particular will often get into martial arts as an adult via their children joining training and then falling in love with it themselves. And that was true for me. That's absolutely 100% true for me. That's how I got there.
Man, I can definitely relate to your knees bone now, because like currently I'm recovering from knee surgery because I ruptured my patellar tendon. So of course, I don't know if mostly the common injury is like the ACL and like all the rest of the small tendons, but for me, my condition, it's rare that you rupture your patellar tendon and then next you can't even walk. So right now I'm just getting myself recovered. Luckily I can get back to doing like martial arts. I can't do any other physical things like running and jumping, so that's going to be coming later. So once I fully recover,
it's inevitable that when adult martial artists get together, we will inevitably compare training injuries, joint replacements, fantastic surgeries, and all the scars and all the training implications. So I'm glad that we got to that early.
Yeah. Of course, like going into your interest in martial arts, like when you first took your lessons, like beforehand, I guess you didn't have much of an interest, but you you kind of went in there because your husband kind of like persuade you, or to say
he suggested that I join them. So it was my daughter and my husband in class. So I only had one daughter at the time. Now I have 2. I credit martial arts training with getting my second one, actually. But I joined them in class, and I'm a very future oriented person. How people tend to either have 3 mindsets. They'll either think about things in the past, people who are past oriented, people who are future oriented, so always anticipating what comes next, and people who kind of live in the now, right? And we all have elements of all 3, but we tended to be one or the other. I'm a future oriented person. I'm constantly trying to think about what comes next, anticipating this, anticipating that. I'm planning trips I'm going to take in 3 years. That's just kind of how my brain works. And so as a consequence, I've struggled with insomnia most of my life because my brain will not shut down. But I noticed very quickly in training, because in martial arts training, you have to be in the now. You have to focus on right now in this moment, and you can't worry about anything that happened. You can't worry about anything that's going to happen. All you can do is be in the now. And by forcing my mindset into that in training, it had the effect of drastically improving my struggles with insomnia because my brain could shut down. It was awesome. It was I wrote about it in my blog as an unexpected side effect that nobody told me about because I had no idea that would happen. And it's really been that I noticed that very, very early. And that's one of the big aha moments that kept me engaged outside of enjoying the physical fitness of it, enjoying the camaraderie with my family, and enjoying the physical challenge that martial arts provides.
Yeah, I could pretty much relate. Like, I don't have insomnia, but of course, I've had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. In some cases, I know I get flashbacks of things that happened in the past. I've been the subject of bullying, and it gets to me sometimes. I have to get up and let that anger out. And of course, if something happens to me like today, and then I think about what's going to happen tomorrow, it's like I get all worried. It's like I want to change what's going to happen to me tomorrow, but I shouldn't have to. Like you said, you should worry about the now and not worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. So what happens tomorrow, I have to deal with it. And of course, that's what some people can't deal with. It's like if something bad happened today, it's like, I don't want to wait to what happens tomorrow. I want to at least deal with it now and just So
that forcing of my mind into the present and being mindful of the present was a really massive benefit. And I don't know that we talk about that enough in the martial arts. We always talk about our physical benefits, but we don't really talk about the mental benefits enough. And I think that's why it's great, even no matter what kind of martial arts style you study, or the reasons that you study. Because not everybody studies to get into a fight. I mean, I'm in my mid 50s. I'm not getting in any fights. I'm a little stubby fat girl. Ain't gonna happen, right? That's not my training goal at all. But for some people, that's how they like to be. That's what their focus is, and all of those are valid. But that side effect of the mental training, I think, it might be the better side versus the physical.
Yeah, I mean, we focus so much on my physical ability. I mean, yeah, but yeah, it's like usually with my students, like I just tell them that when you're defending yourself, you're not defending yourself like physically, you're defending yourself mentally. Like people are gonna attack you mentally, and you gotta learn how to defend yourself against them. They like a lot of people like to attack the weak-minded, and next the weak-minded is just like trapped in that person's person's guilty pleasure. I would like to say, like, it's their guilty pleasures to destroy you mentally as well as physically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like I do believe that there's a certain level of mental confidence that comes, a calmness. And again, I do Filipino martial arts, and we're not known for being meditative. It's just not how we roll, right? But it still has that side effect of mindfulness, of presence, of calmness, of confidence that really, I think you end up carrying yourself a little bit differently. And I believe that is a positive side effect of people don't tend to bully people who are calm and confident.
Yeah, I mean that's the key, pretty much. Let's talk about like the evolution of bullying. It's like things were just like years ago. You just like tell people like you can't do this, you can't do that, and then now with the rise of technology, it's like you rather not tell that person in their face like what they think of you, but you rather do it like text, like by messaging. It's like, I'm here talking about you, but you can't see me. I'm hiding behind a computer. So I guess that's like the disadvantage of like dealing with bullying mentally. I mean, versus physically, when that person is in front of you and they saying these things, and then next it gets to the point where they physically bully you. It's like that's pretty much where I see it right now.
Sure.
Yep. All right. So of course, let's talk about like your first lesson. So what was your first lesson like?
Well, it's kind of like I had two starts to the martial arts. So I started in a version of Taekwondo with my kid and my husband in April of 2008. Soon after, my Arnis teacher came in. They had open spots that they didn't have classes in the school, and he noticed that. And the school had like an after-school program, and so he was putting his daughter, who's about the same age as my older one, in aftercare. And he said, "Hey, you got these empty nights. I'm looking to get people to train with me in Arnis," because at the time he was about the equivalent of about like a green belt. And he needed people to train with to help get better, right? Because you cannot get better by yourself. It's just not possible, especially in the Filipino martial arts. So he kind of suckered us in, and he handed us a stick, and he said, "Okay, now do this." And we're like, "Okay," and fell in love with it immediately. And so I found my true path as a martial artist a couple of months after I took my first lesson. So it's kind of like I had two births. The first one was in the martial arts world in general. And I loved it. I went from 0 to 100 immediately. And then when my Arnis teacher came in, and I don't know the exact date, so I used June as my anniversary date in Arnis. That is when everything went, wow, and then I started doing martial arts 6 times a week. So that's, as much as he would train with us is how much I trained. And so that was pretty amazing. just the challenge of it. And I can't say why it captured my imagination. I think partly because, again, when I started, I was about so it's in 2008. I turned 40 in August of 2008. So I was just shy of 40 years old when I started training. And I don't know. I fell in love with weapons. I like weapons a lot. And honestly, it hurts me less to hit you with an object than to hit you with my fist. So I like that. I like less pain for me, more pain for you. That's kind of how I roll. So I just it really captured my imagination. And then we moved from Mississippi, from Memphis to Las Vegas for a year. And then we ended up in Texas for a year. And so we were kind of like just me and my husband training together, what little we knew, until we found my current teacher, Mark Lynn, in Texas. And I started training Precious Arnis full time. And one of the few people that I truly consider Arnis as my primary style. It's not something that I do on top of like Taekwondo or karate or Tang Soo Do or whatever. Yeah. It's my primary style. All the other stuff I've studied is kind of like side effects to Arnis. Arnis is where it is. Love Arnis. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. So I do it every day if I can.
Yeah. So of course with Arnis is that's like your base of the house. Like everything else is just like furniture.
Exactly. Or like, my base system is a PlayStation, but then the other things I have are like little games that can go in it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always great to pick that one style that's like the base of your house. Like for me, it's the Chuck Norris system. I've been doing it for 26 years. So, I mean, everything else that if I go to like a seminar and learn another style, I mean, that's like furniture. I mean, I'm going to use it to make sure that house doesn't fall over, at least better my house. But yet, I mean, I'm not going to use it as a base because I'm always loyal to the base that I build the house with.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like, I mean, I know what you mean by loyalty, and it's not necessarily like loyal, like, I pledge allegiance kind of thing. It's more of you have found the style and the approach and the system and the teaching methodology and the philosophy that touches your heart, right? I have found mine, and they're not the same, but that's okay. They don't have to be the same. It's all good. And as much as I study other things, and I do, I mean, I earned a black belt in Kobudo, the Japanese weapons. I went through a 3.5-year program to earn a black belt in a system of that. And just because I like weapons, and any chance I have to cross-train in weapons, I do, just because I'm infinitely interested in every tool possible to use in a self-defense situation. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And of course, you say you're really very fascinated with weapons. So other than like the weapons you use in Arnis, well, what's other favorite weapons do you like to use?
Well, okay, so in Arnis we have sticks, we have swords, we have like shorter swords, and we have knives. We also have palm sticks, which is kind of like the length of a pen almost. Think of like you would know them as Kubutan, those little like, they're like about yay big. We have those. We also have, it's not known for it, but the FMAs do have staff. We use a 5-foot staff. It's also can be interpreted as spear. I don't tend to teach that interpretation, mainly because I haven't learned it well enough myself yet. But it's something that I'm desperate to try to figure out. Staff versus spear, because they are different. Which end you have matters in a spear, when it doesn't so much in a staff. And so in that program, I learned 6-foot staff. So I learned bow. I learned tonfa. I learned nunchaku, and I learned sai. I learned just a smattering of kama before I left. And I've also studied Jo off and on, the 4-foot staff, Japanese staff. Of all of those, Jo is the best. Jo is the best. If you go into a fight and you can't have a blade, the Jo is the bomb. It's the best weapon. I love it to pieces. I came to like staff, longer staff. I teach 5 foot, but I have 6 foot as well. And believe me, the length does matter. It matters a lot. But the weapon I thought I was going to love was tonfa, and I don't. I ended up like, they're a little fussy for me. The weapon that I thought I was going to hate and that I did not want to learn because there's so much shenanigans about it is nunchaku, and I love them. I love them a lot. And I'm actually teaching them in our school in 2023. And the Filipino martial arts are called, well, they've got a lot of different names depending on which island and which dialect you're talking about, tabak tayak, or we're just calling them chaco. Now, the shorter handle, longer chain that you see, like there's the famous image of Bruce Lee with that's tabak tayak. That's not nunchaku, because he learned how to do that stuff from Dan Inosanto. He's an FMA teacher in California. And so, yeah, that's tabak tayak. Unfortunately, it's very hard to source those without making them yourself, and I don't have the skill. So I'm just teaching regular nunchaku style, but we're teaching Arnis concepts using that tool. This weapon is really, really popular in the FMA world. Lots of FMA people will play with this weapon. So yeah, so we teach staff and Chaco, and then all the other FMA stuff. I've never studied like Japanese sword. Honestly, I don't have a lot of interest in it. The only knowledge I have about it is based on my Jo training, because Japanese Jo was developed specifically to defeat katana. So that's what I know about it. I have not had the opportunity to train it, and honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'd change my mind like I did about nunchaku. Maybe I would. I don't know. Sai, I dislike with the passion of a million burning suns. I think they're dumb, personally, and I know a lot of Sai people out there are gasping because they love them, and I get it. I understand why you do. I don't like them. I don't think they're practical at all. There's very little in our environment that translates to Sai. However, I will say that doing Sai makes you really good at manipulating grips with knives. So there's a reason to study it. Hooray. Yeah. So, so those are all the weapons that I've experienced. There is a historical European martial arts school near us. If I had the time, I would go train with them and learn like longsword. They use German sparring rules and philosophy. So they have like longsword, they have like great sword, they have spear, they have a bunch of stuff. I'm interested in that stuff, but honestly, there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like a lot of information getting of like all these weapons that you explained. It's like almost I want to try to do it, because when I trained, I learned how to use a bow staff. I mean, I learned like 2 different katas. Like I've learned like a slow version of a kata, which would acquire a heavy bow. But like the second kata, which I had to do for my 4th degree black belt test, it was like a fast-paced kata. It's like I had to use like a light bow. And
yeah. We, in our school, we do have forms. We call them anyos. However, they are direct translations. Well, I take it back. There's one form that I have that we're now calling Anyo 6. That is based on the Kobudo form that I learned back in Texas. And it's kind of like extra for people to just practice with at home. We do have Anyos, and the staff Anyo and the Chaco Anyo are from our niece Anyos. We have 4 a stick or sword, depending on how you want to interpret it, forms. So our staff is directly related to those forms. We just converted them from stick and sword into staff and Chaco. We're not a big form heavy school. Our forms are like ridiculously short. And we do more drills. And so everything we do in our forums is directly related to drills that we teach. So that it's very, very, there's no interpretation here. This is exactly what you're doing because it comes from this. We did this because it's in this drill. We did that because it's in this drill. So that's why we do that. Our forms aren't real pretty to look at. Our forms are intended to supplement drills that we do in class when people don't have anybody to train with at home. That's it. So you said you had a light staff. Was it like the 4-footer, like the toothpick 4-footer, the speed bow?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a speedboat. I mean, you got all these different, but it usually could be a wooden one, and then you got like almost like the light metal type.
Fiberglass and all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So funny story about that. All right. So in the Taekwondo school I was in, he also taught weapons pretty early. The girl's getting ready for her 2nd degree black belt test, and she was going to do a form just like you were describing with that her dad brought her. And this was in 2008. Bought her an $80 fiberglass fancy bow. Now, she intended to use it in competition as well as for her test. She's doing her thing, right? Spins. It grazed the mat, broke it just like that. $80 gone. Just like that.
Oh man, yeah. It's like when I watch competition, that's usually what happens with people. They're doing so good, and next you know the bow breaks.
Yeah, no, I've seen broken bow. We use in the Kobudo program, we use 6-foot white oak bow. So they're really, really dense, and they're very, very heavy, and they're intended for hitting. So like the 6-foot red oak that you can get from like Century, don't hit things with that very hard. It will break. I've seen it. Okay. But we've broken white oak as well. My teacher was doing a demo we had like a demo days thing in the town we were in. And he was doing a demo, and sure enough, he hit it. This kid blocked, and it went spring. So it was like half on the wood grain, and it broke here. So part came up this way, and the rest of it was solid.
Oh,
Just broke it, just right in the middle. Boom, just like that. That was the craziest break I've ever seen of a bow. It was, wow. Usually you see a tip knocked off, but no. This was, yeah, that was pretty amazing that he broke that bow like that.
yeah. I mean, and also you talk about like the Tafa is not your best weapon. I'm definitely working with the Tafa also. And well, just speaking of the Tafa, I like before I kind of worked with the like the regular Tafas, like my master instructor, he had like 2 PR-24s that kind of worked with the strength. And with working with PR-24 is a lot difficult than working with wooden Tafas, because you got the heavy well, I'm getting good with it because I think of I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of pro wrestling, but there's one pro wrestler named
sure.
the Big Boss Man, because he had the nightsticks. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Sure do. Yeah. Well, so I like Tonfa, in my opinion, a person who doesn't know anything else about weapons, because you cannot just pick up weapons and start doing karate with them. Okay, you just can't. All right. I understand the weapon is the extension of the hand, but that is a great oversimplification. As a weapons person, I'm telling you, it's oversimplified. But in my opinion, I think an empty hand martial artist, a person who's used to punch kicking, can absolutely pick up Tonfa, and as long as they keep them and they keep the grip where it's up against their arm, right? I think you can do karate with Tonfa and use them effectively. I absolutely believe that to be the case. That is one of the few weapons that I think would work like that. And that's why I don't get why empty hand people just absolutely love staff, because to me, Tonfa is the easiest weapon for them. I mean, you don't have to flip them. You don't. You can literally just keep it here and just do all your punching, and that would be devastating. That would hurt so much. And just imagine your blocks, with that Tonfa, right? I think it would work great. And I don't understand. I don't see a lot of that in Tonfa people, and it just kind of perplexes me, because as a weapons person, I think that should be the first weapon that empty hand people should get, because it should be pretty easy for you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
it's easy. There's nothing wrong with easy. Easy's good.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, because you talk about using Tafas for traditional martial arts moves. That's me. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and when you do traditional arts and you see things that people are doing, it looks to me like if you put a Tonfa in your hand, that is going to be way better. Because sometimes you're like, I don't know about that. Because I've blocked that way and it hurt. Well, you put a TOF up against your arm, let's see what happens, right? So yeah, TOF were not my favorite, mainly because I don't like flippies. And people insisted that it has to be that way. And I don't think that's true. Now, what I did was I flipped the TOF around. So I had them by the ends and the handles were up there. And I just did Arnie's. Boom, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I guess the worst thing about having TOF is that his hands get all sweaty, and then next the TOF flies out of your hand, and then next there's hit somebody else. Yeah.
Oh, I in my Kobudo class that happened more than once. People were like, "Oh, watch out! Everybody's ducking."
Yeah.
Yeah, and ours were white oak. I mean, we use heavy, dense weapons in that program. They order them special from a special weapons maker, and so these aren't like the stuff you get from Century that are kind of like, the joints are kind of loose and stuff. No, this was hardcore, and boy, you don't want to get hit by one of those TOF flying. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, that would be bad, very bad.
All right, so let's kind of get to like your favorite moment. Do you have any favorite moments that you think about like as you like train, or pretty much in your past, like where you think like this is the best moment for you?
I have been very blessed in my martial arts career, I guess. I've had amazing teachers and continue to have amazing teachers. My students are amazing. I think my best moments are ahead of me, to be honest. So what we're working on right now, in July, we'll be promoting our first black belt that my husband and I have brought up from the beginning. It'll be our first black belt for our school. And we actually, before the school opened in September of 2021, but we've been acting as a meetup since 2018. We moved to Kansas City in June of 2018. 2 weeks later, we started the meetup. And so we've had students with us since 2018, even though the school didn't open until 2021. So we're getting ready to promote our first, and then right after him, there's 2 more behind him that'll be in March of 2024. And so the process of getting ready for our black belts, and we get to decide like what's the process, what's the ceremony, what ritual are we putting around it, right? What traditions are we going to instill in our school? That is awesome. It is better than getting promoted to black belt, I'll tell you that right now. Getting ready to promote your first student to black belt is awesome. It's the best. There's no better moment in the martial arts, I don't think. When you're a teacher and you finally have a student who's at that level where you're like, yep, he's learned enough. Now it's time. It's amazing. So I think that's ahead of me, to be honest.
Yep. And talking about like your experience with a black belt test, of course, you said you had a black belt test, in what style?
Okay, so all right, so I had a formal. The only time. Okay, so I had 2 black belt promotions. Okay, outside of like multiple DANs since then, right? So my first one was in Precious Arnis. I was secretly tested and surprise promoted. I had no idea until they handed me the belt. Didn't know. It was amazing. Looking back on it, it was incredible. My teacher in Texas had us go to my original teacher in Memphis was having a seminar, an Arnie seminar. And so the tradition in that group is that people get together on Friday night and they play Arnie's until we can't play anymore. And then we get together for the seminar on the next day. And so my teacher came to that, and that's not usual for him. We would go, but usually he didn't go, but he came this time, which was great. I mean, my teacher's kind of like, my teacher's name is Mark Lynn, and Mark is the eternal student. He will study with anyone, anywhere, anytime if he can get there. That's kind of his thing. He takes notes. His fun time on a Saturday night is studying notes from a seminar he attended 15 years ago, and he'll get an insight into his notes that he didn't have before because it's 15 years later. That's how my teacher rolls. So he goes to the seminar, and Friday night's normal. And looking back, in a moment I didn't notice, but looking back, it was kind of fishy because all of the Grandmaster, his name is Bruce Chu, all of his seniors are playing with both Kevin and I. And that wasn't normal. I played with everybody in the room, but they made like a point to play with me and Kevin, which was different. But, again, in the moment, didn't notice it. Next day, seminar comes, we do the seminar, and they do promotions for my teacher, David, the Memphis guy, there, and they were doing promotions, and Mark's up there, and I'm like, okay, well, Mark's up there as a guest, he's a black belt, he's, that's courtesy, and he's holding our niece black belts. I don't know if you've seen our black belts. Ours are black with like a red edge, and he's got our niece black belts, and he's standing up there. I'm like, who of David's students getting promoted? Because I didn't know. I was like, oh, how cool, right? And then they finished the promotions for David's group, and then David and Bruce and Mark look at me and Kevin, and we're like, then it hit me. Oh my gosh, he's up there for us. We had no idea. So we were surprise promoted to first degree in front of our original Memphis friends, by my current teacher, by my original teacher, my degree, my first degree signed by all of them. And it was a surprise. So it was awesome. I was secretly tested and surprise promoted. It was the best. I loved it. And then the first time I actually tested that I knew it was happening, was in my Kobudo first degree. In Kobudo, I was kind of like a peacock among swans, because they were all karate and taekwondo people, and myself and just a couple other people were Arnis people. And so like whenever I'd go, I had to wear like a white gi, which I don't wear. But I wore my black belt, and we wear ours on our hip, because it represents my teacher. The founder of Modern Arnis was left-handed, so we wear it on our right hip, right? So inevitably someone said, hey, your black belt's crooked. No, it's not. This is the way we wear it in our knees. Oh, okay. So 3 years into it, and I was really nervous mainly because there's so much etiquette that they care about. And in our knees, we're very chill. At least in my world, in our knees, we're chill. We're very chillaxed. So, my stressing was more about, walking so I wasn't too loud on the wood floor, and I practiced my head off, and I had no doubt. I mean, they wouldn't let me test if I wasn't going to be promoted. I mean, I knew I was getting promoted, but just making sure that I really, the nerves in that were more about etiquette and making sure that I represented my teacher, Mark, who's a member of that organization, well. Right? So it was really about making my teacher look good versus myself. So that's what I was more concerned about in that test.
Yeah.
Those are my two first degree. I have other testing that I did, but those are the two big ones. And they were both memorable.
Yeah, I mean, getting like your first degree is like always the best memory, the best moment that every martial artist have. I mean, mostly mine, because mostly my black belt test was just basically endurance. It's like how much I can do to get to the end and without quitting. I mean, I could think of like black belt tests like when I had like a football game before that, and luckily I didn't get hurt. And of course, at my second degree, I ended up with cracked ribs and sciatica. So, I mean, luckily I got rid of sciatica. Yeah. And then of course, going into the black belt test with cracked ribs and hoping I didn't get kicked in the ribs. That was like the end of the test was like sparring. And
my teacher's first degree at Arnis, his partner, he was kind of mad at him. Because he was kind of like being lackadaisical in his feeds, and it was difficult. And he just kind of forgot about it. But he saw his partner years later, and he said, I've always meant to ask you, like, what was going on? He goes, Mark, you hit me in the head. I was concussed. He got hit. He was concussed. So that's why he was feeding all I've seen the video. I know the guy was feeding poorly because the man didn't know where he was. Oh my goodness. Oh. Yeah. So in planning the black belt test for my student, there's all different ways. Every organization has their own thing. Our belief is that you earn your black belt in class every day. And so our test is not a test. It's more of a graduation. And so in our style, in my school, we have what we call the 12 principles of Precious Sarnes. These are things like relax. These are things like weaponize everything. These are things like find the fight in your drills, right? And so our black belts are supposed to be able to explain and demonstrate the meaning of all 12 principles. That's what that means. It's not about technique A, B, C, D. That's really not what it's about. And so we're planning on, supporting him on, he basically has to do a 2.5 hour demonstration of his understanding of the 12 principles of Precious Sarnes. That's what he's got to do. And he's by the time we get there, he's black belt. He is. That's just the way it is. Some styles are like that. Like I feel very inspired by when BJJ will just promote somebody in class, right? It's kind of like that, but I wanted to have the special graduation feel behind it, and that's why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
Yeah, I can see pretty much when I think of going for a 5th degree. I mean, it's sort of like we go to Vegas and and then we perform in front of Mr. Norris, and of course after that we go up on the stage and we get our black jackets, and then from there we do the sacred oath, or we're sworn in, and then from there it's just we're master rig. So that's
and the process and the ritual of that is really important. And as I've given thought to how to promote our black belts, as we've talked about it, my husband and I, and we've actually talked about it with our senior student who's getting ready to test, because he's going to be setting the standard for everybody else, right? And so we're giving a lot of thought to this. And, it's that ritual, the process of graduation into that next phase of your training is really important. And so we wanted to make it a big deal, but also I don't like tests. I think I'm not a testing person, and mainly because, when we do rank evaluations here at our school, we literally do it over a period of about 2 weeks. And it's no one of my students can fail a test, can fail that evaluation. If anybody fails, it's on us. And so it's a matter of take that evaluation to make sure to touch base on certain skills that we expect each one of those students to have, and to make sure that they have done that. And if they have not, it doesn't hold them back. It just means we have to address it to make sure that they're ready for the next thing. Does that make sense? It's more of the measurement of time and progress versus skill sets.
Yeah, pretty much I can relate. Like, really, I want to make sure that I'm on top of my students' training, making sure, of course, they know what they need to know for their next rank. So yeah, I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, that's how we all.
All right. So who would you say you look up to in this journey?
Wow. There are so many people that are inspirational to me. And I'm sure I'll miss names. But every female pioneer before me in every style, from judo to FMAs to karate, it's, especially when you're an adult. I mean, in kids classes, it's pretty even, but in an adult world, women are the minority, and it takes a special kind of person to kind of pioneer that stuff and to kind of blaze the way. It's really difficult sometimes. Again, I'm not a person who's easily intimidated, so I don't care. I mean, it's not unusual for me to be the only woman training at a seminar. Not unusual at all. I went to a camp in Colorado in 2016, 50 people, 1 woman. And I'm not intimidated by that. I don't care. And I've only had a negative experience twice in my training time in 14 years, which just isn't bad. I mean, everybody has a negative training experience no matter what, right? So yeah. I'm doing pretty good. But I would say I've only had 2 that were really kind of related to my gender. And that's okay. Those guys suck. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm always grateful to women who are pioneering, and I'm grateful for young women, or not necessarily young, new women because some of us start in our 40s and 50s and 60s. Women who are willing to step on a mat for the first time and take up the journey and stay in the journey and stay committed to the journey. I think that that's really inspirational for women inside and outside of the arts. So that's the first one. Secondly, I have been blessed with many, many great, a lot of really good advice and inspiration from a lot of people. But mainly the names that come to mind immediately outside of my immediate teachers. One would be Hawk Hockheim, who is he leads I don't know how to describe it, an organization, I guess, called Force Necessary. He is a direct teacher of my teacher, Mark, as well as my husband, Kevin. But Hawk has always been super supportive of all of our trying to build this school here in Kansas City. He did a benefit for us when we first opened, and he's always been super, super supportive and helpful. And his advice has always been great. Another one is a man named Dan Anderson. Dan Anderson is he's a sport karate legend, but he's also an arnis player. He'll be here in March, actually. We're bringing him in. But Dan has always been, again, another one of those, bouncing ideas off of. He runs a school in Gresham, Oregon, so he knows the day-to-day grind of a school. And, he's always been really, really helpful in terms of asking questions. What do you think about this, that, the other thing? So his advice and his perspective is always welcome. It's always been really good. There's so many others that I don't want to leave out, but those two have been really helpful in our last, especially getting this school off the ground was really difficult. It's difficult for any martial arts school. It's triple hard when you're a Filipino martial arts school, especially when you're starting with, we had 7 students when we started, and now we are at 33, 34. I have to do a count. I'm getting ready to do my end of the year statistics. But I think we're at 33, which isn't bad growth in a year and a half. Getting the school up and running. And so people who have helped us and have been supportive of getting the school up and running and showing up. And of course, I'm super, super 100% mega grateful to every single one of our students who come here. And not only do they pay us for the privilege, but they've just helped form the kind of community that we wanted. KPA is a community. We have a lot of Filipinos in our community, which is exciting because they have the best food ever. And our holiday party was awesome. And everybody's just open and warm and welcoming and supportive to each other, which is what we wanted to have. That's why it's called Kindred, because we wanted to be like a family.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like, of course, my martial arts style, the Chuck Norris, and we have the UFAF, the United Fine Arts Federation. I mean, we have like all these martial artists like from around the world. I mean, that's pretty much the whole concept of Mr. Norris, just bringing the world together. I mean, we've been pretty much going against each other for years, and then we just don't seem to really put aside our difference and just be a community and let's learn from each other. And like to put this in a different way, I see how you say you're the only woman that are being like in a seminar, and it kind of feels the same way for me. Like if I'm the only male in like a fitness class for women, I'm not going to be intimidated. I mean, I don't find it intimidating to learn from a woman, young and old, because if that person has more knowledge than me, it's best for me to be humble and at least learn like how to better myself from that person. So yeah, so I can see, that's what I'm geared up to. Like I'm not intimidated to learn from a woman, or if anybody in particular.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the principles, again, the 12 principles of Precious Arnis, one of them is learn from everyone. Always have an open mind. We encourage cross-training. We encourage people to go check out other teachers, to other styles. We want people to do that. We also ask, so a lot of people who come in the Filipino martial arts do have experience in other styles. One of my top guys is a Shotokan guy. I have an Aikido guy. I have a boxer. and BJJ guy. We have people from all sorts of martial arts backgrounds, those who do have one. And we don't ask our students to forget that background. We want them to incorporate it into their REs. So that's why my first black belt will be different than my second and third one, because all three of them have very different martial arts backgrounds.
Yep.
And we like that. We're down with that.
Oh, definitely. All right. So what inspirational quote best describes your journey?
I don't know that I have a single quote. I mean, one that I use a lot in my blog is I don't know if it's inspirational. Oh, it's inspirational to me, is why use meat when tools are available, because that's my weapon mindset. But I don't know that I have a single one. It's really hard to think of a single one. I think it's a complex journey, and over time, my goals and my beliefs have changed as I trained and I learned more and I met more people and I got more perspectives from people of different ways. And so I think if I were going to say one thing that really, if there's one word I think that every martial artist should have in their brain, it's flexibility. Should be flexible. Change is the only constant. And so, try to keep a flexible, open mind. I think that it enables you to grow as a martial artist. I don't know if you've noticed, there are people out there who will be in one style and they will never cross train. And then they get to a certain level and there's nobody above them anymore. And and there's no peers. So they're like top guy. All they have is the people underneath them. So they don't have teachers. They don't have peers. All they have is students, and then they stop growing, because you need all three to grow. So Mr. Norris is a great example. Mr. Norris cross trains in a lot of different styles. He has teachers. Another one who does that is Dan Inosanto. So a lot of the top greats in the martial arts are students still. They will seek out not only peers, but they also seek out teachers in other styles, and they humble themselves and they have that open and flexible mind to continue to learn and to continue to grow. And that's what makes them greats, I think.
Yeah, when I think of that, I think of I watched the movie Bloodsport, and Van Damme said it best. It's like, use any technique that works. Don't limit yourself to one style. Keep an open mind. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, it's fine to be one style, but I think it's a good idea to just be flexible and see what you can learn. Because it may not, I mean, I there's a lot of things I've gotten perspectives from with people that I've trained where it's more like, I don't agree with that strategy for this reason. And so it helped me understand my own strategy better, I guess. You know what I'm saying? It's not that my strategy is the best because my teacher said so. My strategy is the best because I've evaluated it. And for me, this works for me. Right. And I know that based on getting perspectives, both supporting and against, from other people. And that's why I am loyal to my style, because I believe in it, other than just, it's inertia, right? Yep. I believe in it because I believe in it, because I know from my heart, I know it's what's right for me.
Yeah, just thinking about, like, of course, street situations like self-defense. I mean, sometimes you're going to be fighting standing up, sometimes you're going to be fighting the ground. So luckily with my style, we incorporate like BJJ as well as Krav Maga, and we still have our traditional martial arts. And definitely, you never know what situation you might be. A lot of people that out there fighting in the streets, you never know, they could be a former martial artist, like trained in BJJ, Krav Maga, and even people that played sports, football, wrestling. They're going to use that to fight on the street. So,
and I think we have to also train for the lives that we actually live, right? Yeah. So I live in suburban Kansas City. My streets are suburbia, and I'm pretty sure I can take Margaret across the street.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah. She's 80. I can take her.
Yeah.
The point being is that we talk about the street, but what that means is different for each one of us and the lives that we actually live. The rules that we have to live under, and I'm sorry, there are rules. Say what you want. There's always rules. Laws are rules. There's always rules. The situation you're in, the life you live, and the people that you interact with are different. I mean, you are a very different person than I am. I am a stubby woman in her mid 50s, I have an artificial hip, and I'm not going to get into this with somebody. It's not going to happen. It's just not the life I live at all. But is it likely that I should be coming out of the grocery store and somebody will try to knock me over and take my purse? Yeah, that's the life I live. So I have to think about the life I live and the risks that are most likely for me. That's not likely for you. So it's different based on each one of our individual lifestyles and our individual lives. And that's why every time somebody goes, well, that won't work on the street, I'm like, well, it worked on mine. Don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But of course, every time somebody says that, you can go find a video of it working in real life, and they're like, well, as soon as you think the way the world is, it will show you that it's not what you think. That's why flexibility is the number one value to have, I think.
Yeah. I mean, what my students, and I always tell them, like, what is your mindset when you get out, like when you get out, like get out of school? It's like your goal is to get home, and your mindset is like not what you're going to do when you get home. It's like, am I going to make it home? So that's what I usually put in my students' minds. Like, you want to think about how I'm going to make it home safe, so I can think about like what I'm going to do at home. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our Hidden Dojo segment of the interview. So this is where we get to hear the fun parts of Jackie Bradbury. So I'm going to ask you several questions to answer at the best of your ability. So here we go. You ready?
Let's hit it.
All right. The first question is the best piece of advice you ever gotten, and who said it?
Man, it all depends on what we're talking. Okay. When I opened my school utilizing the small dojo, big profits methodology. The idea is that you don't spend a lot of money. You make every penny scream. So the best advice I got was from Mike Massey, utilizing that system to open up my school and making sure that I was able to do it and to get into profitability within a year.
Hey, so
His name is Mike Massey. Go check him out. His book is Small Dojo, Big Profits. It's a fantastic book for people who want to open up a school on a shoestring budget.
Awesome. All right. Here's the next question. The worst advice you ever gotten?
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
My goodness. There's been so much bad advice. Golly, I'm hard pressed to pick one, to be honest. Because usually I just blow that. I just let it go out of my mind. I don't let negativity kind of like control my worldview at all. So, I opened the school because I knew I was going to do it, and it was really risky. The weekend we signed the lease on this school, I signed it on a Saturday. I got laid off from my full-time job on Monday.
Oof.
And here we are. Right?
Yeah.
So, it wasn't, don't allow other people's limitations limit you. Right?
Yep.
We were told, that's such a big risk. Oh, it's, you're going to lose all this money. Oh, how are you going to make it work? And honestly, it was a struggle, sure. And we did it. You can do it. Sure can.
Yep.
You can do it. And I did it in a martial arts style that's unknown outside of the martial arts world, pretty much. And here I am. So there you go. It can be done. Yep. So worst piece of advice is really any piece of advice that tells you you can't. You cannot. That's impossible. You'll never make it work. Never. That, ignore them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question. How do you reward yourself? I kind of call this the guilty pleasure.
Buy another weapon.
Yep, that worked.
Yeah, I still haven't bought my live Filipino blade because I haven't found the one yet, but I will be sure. I will. I'll find it. So my guilty pleasure is that I will buy myself weapons all day long. To Yeah, that's it. My guilty pleasure. I will do it to reward myself. I'll do it just because it's cool. That's my thing. I have way more weapons than I have a problem with weapons, and the problem is I don't have enough places to store it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of sound like Tackleberry. Yeah. 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 If I know Tackleberry from Police Academy, he's so fond of weapons.
Yeah.
That's his guilty pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I collect. I like weapons. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I would collect games or collect DVDs. I mean, that could be my guilty pleasure.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like weapons a lot. I have a ton of training weapons that I probably should. I don't need, but I do. I absolutely need them. I need every single one of them.
All right. So, what famous movie would you want to be in?
Gosh, that is a fun one. Gosh. I wish it's dystopian, but I would sure love to be Trinity from The Matrix. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'll be able to be like Neo or Morpheus. I mean that'd be my top two people in the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hidden talent.
Art. So our logo, all of our 90% of our social media, I designed all of it. I'm good at commercial art.
Yeah, I mean that's me. I mean I couldn't say that's a hidden talent, because I've been drawing for years.
Yeah.
I mean right now I'm thinking like for the new year, getting out of retirement and start drawing again, because I've got a lot of designs in mind that I want to do. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not drawing like by hand. I'm not so good at, but I'm really good at like using tools to create logos, imagery, that kind of stuff. Good at that.
Yeah. All right. Dream celebrity encounter.
Goodness. While we're on this Matrix theme, I would love to just like have lunch with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I mean, I heard he's like a humble guy. It's like, you can simply talk to him.
I would like to just spend an hour talk about his training experiences. That's what I would be down with. I'd love to talk to him about that.
Yeah, I don't know if he lives in Toronto, but I think he's like more in Toronto a lot. But if that, I'd be lucky if I ran into him in Toronto, because like I said, that's like an hour and a half from where I'm at. So, yeah, that'd be nice to actually run into Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, Keanu's. I would love to just geek out with him on training. I'd love to hear about his experiences training judo and all the firearms work he's done. He's done BJJ. He's done a bunch of stuff, and I'd be really interested to talk about training with him.
Well, mostly I like to talk about his Bill and Ted situation.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Final question. Future plans for the next 10 years.
Gosh, that's tough. I hope to be continuing to run a martial arts school. Right now, my focus is so much on my students. And so in 10 years, I hope to have a pass full of black belts, all off. The cool thing, honestly, the bigger dream is I would love for them to have their own schools, right? And to have like a little mini organization of people who train with us, continue to train with us, but also have their own little satellite schools. We actually have two right now. We have one in Joplin, Missouri, and we have one out in the east side of town, our senior student is teaching a Arnie's class on Monday nights. And so that's pretty cool. And I would like to have more of those. I would love to have like a little mini organization of people who are training in Arnie's here in the Midwest. That would be great.
Yeah, just to expand to get out in the world pretty much.
Yeah, mainly because I'm so passionate about our style, and it's very accessible for people from a wide variety of backgrounds and physical abilities. Even if someone comes in and they decide to go to a different style, I think we can get people training, right? And then, like I started in a different style and then I moved to mine. So a lot of people do that. And so I really want to get it out there, not only to represent the Filipino martial arts for the brilliant thing that it is, because it is, and really get out there and show people what the FMAs are and how they too can join us and having such a good time.
Yeah, amazing.
Because if you're not having fun, what's the point, right?
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So is there any last minute words you'd like to tell our listeners out there before we cut out?
No, outside of our website is kindredprotects.com. I also write a blog at thestickchick.com, although it's been I haven't been as diligent writing it because I've been busy. And if you're in Kansas City and you want to try the Filipino martial arts, or you're experienced in the Filipino martial arts and just want to stop by and say hi, we'd love to have you.
Amazing. Okay, thank you very much, Jackie, for joining me for this pre-recorded episode. So I hope everything goes well for you, and of course, the New Year's approaching. So hope everything goes well at the start of 2023, and of course, let's just say this has been a pleasure actually chatting with you.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much, TJ.
All right, so I'm gonna do my little closing for our little podcast. All right, for those who just tuned in for the first time, tune into my previous episodes on the bicbpradio.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And I'll see you next time for another episode here at the Kickpod podcast. This is your host, TJ Williams, bowing you out.